saw reflections of their own history, their own fights for freedom and self-determination. And that's what brought two young men together in the 1950s. In 1956, Tom Mboya, a rising political leader in Kenya, came here to the United States. He was on a speaking tour about his nation's struggle for independence. Backstage at an event in New York, he met Bill Scheinman, a young American entrepreneur who supported his cause. They hit it off immediately. They decided to continue their conversation at a restaurant, and they ended up talking all night. Mboya shared his efforts to assist rising Kenyan leaders who were going to college. Scheinman wanted to help. In the coming years, they started a foundation to support Kenyans studying in the United States. The group identified outstanding students. They rallied donations. They chartered flights to bring them to U.S. colleges and U.S. universities. Eventually, Mboya convinced a young American senator by the name of John F. Kennedy to provide support. Soon, this program became known as the Kennedy Airlifts. This initiative brought hundreds of Kenyans and other East Africans to the United States over the years. Many became trailblazers in medicine, academia, civil society, government, the media. A number worked alongside Mboya, one of Kenya's founding fathers. Mboya and Scheinman themselves became friends for life. Mboya was the best man at Scheinman's wedding. Years later, when Scheinman died, he was buried in Kenya, next to Mboya. President Ruto, you once said that nations are driven forward and changed by individuals, ordinary men and women who believe that they can make a difference and can change the status quo. Mboya and Scheinman shared that belief and acted on it. So does President Ruto. His own story, rising from a kid who went to school barefoot until he was 15 years old, earned money selling chickens by the side of the road, to become president of his country, is a testament to that very idea. And Mr. President, I think and hope that you felt these past few days the gratitude that we have for our partnership and for your leadership. Ben Franklin looks down upon us, our first diplomat. He was known for his aphorisms. One of them, many of us know, is, "Well done is better than well said." Anyone who has the benefit of working with and listening to President Ruto knows that he excels at both. Countless other Kenyans and Americans have also dedicated themselves to doing their part. And for generations, our people have continued to collaborate to advance our shared values, our hopes, our visions for the future. Today, our countries are working together to grow inclusive economic opportunity, to shape cutting-edge technology in Silicon Valley and the Silicon Savannah. We're supporting the transition to clean energy, improving our capacity to prevent, to detect, to treat infectious disease. We're working to counter terrorism, to resolve conflicts, to help restore stability to some of the most insecure places, including Haiti. These are areas where President Ruto has demonstrated critical personal leadership, not just in the region, but around the world. Our citizens, our communities, our civil societies are also working every day to strengthen our democracies, to bring ourselves a little bit closer to the free, open, just, and equitable societies that we both aspire to be. Long after the airlifts, we continue to grow the ties between our countries and between our people. Earlier this week, President Ruto and President Biden announced a new educational exchange program focused on STEM, named after the Kennedy-Mboya partnership. When Kenyans and Americans collaborate, they're not just leading on the issues that matter to our people, they're leading on issues that matter to people everywhere. That's the story of Octavia Carbon. Its team of Kenyan engineers, scientists, climate change experts are building machines that pull carbon out of the atmosphere. Their goal is to become the first carbon removal company in Africa to lower the cost of this critical technology. The Octavia team started working from a kitchen table. Now, they've created a machine that can absorb as much carbon in a year as 2,000 trees. When that technology is ready to deploy, Octavia Carbon will team up with a U.S. company to store all of the extracted CO2 in the ground. And together, they'll help make our shared planet more sustainable for generations to come. I'm told that in the Octavia Carbon warehouse, the place where they're actually building and testing these prototypes right now, there's a mural, and it's got two portraits on it. One depicts the company's namesake, the great black American writer Octavia Butler, whose science fiction stories challenge readers around the world to imagine a different future for our societies. The other portrait is of one of the greatest marathon runners of all time, the great Kenyan athlete, who once said that he lives for moments when he gets to challenge the limits. That's the spirit that animated Tom and Moya, Bill Scheinman more than 60 years ago. They challenged the limits of their time, pressing for more free, more just societies in both of our countries. It's the same spirit that unites Kenyans and Americans today. The determination, the creativity, the audacity to chart a path beyond what we believe is possible. To not only imagine a better world, and to make it, and to make it together. So, please join me in a toast. To every limit that our people have already surpassed, to the limits that we will exceed together. And now it's my great honor to present to you the Vice President of the United States.
until the lion learned to write, all stories favor the hunter. We have decided that we are going to write our own story. And we started this last year when I convened the first ever Africa Climate Summit. The conversation, the narrative has always been this continent of conflict, trouble, disease, poverty. Yet, that is not the story of Africa. Africa is a continent of tremendous opportunity. The largest reserves of energy, renewable energy resources. 60% of the world's arable and cultivated land. 30% of mineral wealth, global mineral wealth, including those that are necessary for energy transition. The youngest continent, which will produce 40% of the world's working or workforce by 2050, and where a quarter of the world's population will be living, providing the world's biggest single market. In short, Africa is a rich continent and a continent of opportunity. I am very happy that President Biden and this visit is giving us the opportunity to rewrite and recalibrate the relationship between this great superpower and our continent. And I am very proud that among the things we've agreed are not just about Kenya and the US, it's about Kenya and the continent of Africa. From what we are doing around climate action, what we are doing around the financial architecture of the world, to make it fairer, to make it much more sensitive, to make it much more agile, and to make it possible for many African countries and those in the global south, many developing countries, to access concessionary resources for us to manage the affairs of our people, and that no country will spend more money on paying debt or on managing climate-induced crises than they do on spending on health, education, or social service. I must commend the leadership of the United States, President Biden, and the many other leaders I met at the Hill, including the Black Caucus, including the leadership, the joint leadership of the House and the Senate. And all of them share the same views with us that it's time for a new relationship, to build a new relationship between our continent and the United States, as we encourage the United States to take leadership on making sure that together we can have a freer, a safer, a healthier, and a much more prosperous globe for all of us. Finally, we discussed many issues that today I find will give us new opportunities, will open new frontiers, and will enlarge the horizon for collaboration in making sure that we deal with the challenges that we all face of insecurity, of stability, challenges of debt and other financial challenges, but also give ourselves the opportunity to explore the tremendous opportunities that exist for collaboration in exploiting our huge reserves and assets, using our human capital and connecting assets that we have in our continent to technologies from the US, to financial reserves from